Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Olivia had always been a dedicated woman. Ever since she married Brandon, she gave up her own career to focus on the house, the marriage, and, above all, their well-being. And indeed, Brandon never insisted that she work. He liked seeing her relaxed, taking care of the home, having time for herself, without financial worries. But over time, that routine started to weigh on her. Waking up, taking care of the house, preparing meals, organizing things, every day exactly the same. And as much as she loved being a wife, there was something inside her growing uneasy. Something she could no longer ignore. One random afternoon, while having coffee with her best friend, the perfect idea came up. Why not start her own business? Something she could do from home, on her own time, without giving up the life she already had? Her friend, excited, immediately suggested they create an online store. And the most curious part, a men's clothing store. After all, according to her friend, men always buy less, have less patience for choosing, so it would be easier to sell to them. Olivia got excited right away. It seemed to be exactly what she needed to feel useful, accomplished, and maybe even a little independent. When she told Brandon, he was surprised but at the same time liked the idea. He found it interesting to see his wife enthusiastic, with a sparkle in her eyes, excited about something new. He supported her. He said that if they needed it, he would help financially to get the store up and running, set up inventory, invest in advertising. Brandon always believed that when someone truly loves, they support the other's growth. And he was willing to do that. But there was one thing that made him a little uncomfortable. The friend. This particular friend of Olivia's, despite being always present, wasn't exactly a good reference when it came to relationships. She was one of those who lived going to parties, using dating apps, always surrounded by different men. She didn't bother hiding that she liked to enjoy life, and for her, commitment was a word without much value. Brandon never liked that. He observed quietly, without interfering, but deep down he was on alert. Because, as much as he trusted Olivia, he knew no one is made of steel. And with time, association has power. If you hang out with people who don't behave properly, sooner or later you might start thinking certain behaviors are normal. Even so, Brandon took a deep breath and made it clear to himself, Olivia is different. She's not like that. She's a woman of character, of values, and I know who she is. So he decided to trust. He did observe, though. He paid attention to her moves, to her conversations, to subtle changes in her behavior. But at the same time, he kept this discomfort to himself. He didn't want to clip his wife's dreams. After all, she was happy, motivated, and that, in a way, was also good for the marriage. She felt useful, active, less trapped in the exhausting routine of being a housewife. The store project took shape quickly. They created social media accounts, put together a catalog, held photo sessions, and began promoting it. And, to everyone's surprise, it worked really well. Sales started growing, customers appeared, and Olivia was glowing. Brandon, even with that warning light on, was happy to see her fulfilled. But deep down, that twinge in his stomach never completely went away. Because, as much as he wanted to believe everything would go smoothly, he knew life sometimes likes to test even those who seem most prepared. And that's how, without realizing it, he planted within himself this mix of pride, love, and distrust. A dangerous combination, which only those who have experienced it understand perfectly how it feels to live each day balancing the fine line between trusting and fearing. Time passed, and the online store that Olivia managed with her best friend was running at full speed. Sales were increasing, orders were coming in practically every day, and they were excited about the growth of the business. Her friend's name was Megan, an outgoing woman, full of opinions, who loved living on the edge of things. Brandon was never a big fan of hers. He thought Megan was a questionable influence, always giving advice that seemed, at the very least, reckless. And this mistrust only grew after a comment Olivia made during a casual dinner. While he finished eating, Olivia started laughing, picked up her phone, and commented, as if it were something normal, that Megan had been flirting with some of the store's clients, especially one who, according to her, had sent a shirtless picture. She said it laughing, as if it were a silly joke, something unimportant. Brandon became serious right away. He questioned whether that was part of the service they offered. Olivia tried to brush it off, saying Megan was like that she joked about everything and never took anything seriously. But deep down, he was upset. That lit up a warning light. What kind of professionalism was that? What kind of environment was she getting involved in? Brandon didn't say anything else at that moment, but he kept observing. And it was just a few days later that Olivia casually mentioned that there was a client who placed orders almost every week. She said his name was Jackson. And at that moment, it didn't seem relevant. She just said he bought a lot, that he was one of those loyal customers who always praised the pieces, made a point of supporting their work. Brandon heard, registered it mentally, and moved on with life. But as the days went by, he noticed something strange. Olivia simply stopped talking about this Jackson. Before, she mentioned the orders, the conversations about sizes, about models. Suddenly, total silence. And this silence, for Brandon, was more than enough. It didn't make sense. When something disappears from the conversation like that, it's because there's something going on. Some weeks before that sudden silence that Brandon had noticed, Olivia still saw everything as a harmless situation, or at least tried to believe it was. Jackson had started as just another customer. Always polite, making purchases week after week, complimenting the service, the clothes, and saying he loved supporting local businesses. At first, she thought it was just a good business relationship, but gradually, she began noticing there was something more in the way he wrote. The messages started becoming more relaxed, more personal. And she felt, even subtly, that Jackson was interested. She pretended not to notice, but deep down, it stirred something in her. It was then that Jackson, in one of those conversations, suggested that he could pick up the order in person to save on shipping. In his view, something practical, simple. Olivia hesitated. She knew that could be interpreted in many ways, but Megan, who was closely following everything, downplayed it right away. "That's great," she said. "It shows that customers trust our work. It's networking, connection." Those words served as a sort of approval for Olivia to ignore that internal discomfort. She gave him the address, without reflecting much on the consequences. When the day came and Jackson showed up, Olivia realized her assumptions were correct. He was even more handsome in person. Well-dressed, confident, friendly, the kind of guy who exudes self-assurance without trying. The meeting was brief, just long enough for him to pick up the order, but it left marks she couldn't explain. That exchange of glances, that smile. It was different. What Olivia didn't imagine was that, on her side, Megan was watching everything. Always attentive, always ready to turn any situation into an opportunity. As soon as Jackson left, Megan looked at Olivia and blurted out, with that somewhat provocative tone typical of her, "What a handsome man, huh? And nice too." Olivia, a bit awkward, ended up agreeing, trying to hide that slightly embarrassed smile. "Yeah. He really is," she replied, as if wanting to drop the subject right there. But knowing Megan, she knew this probably wouldn't end so easily. At the end of that same afternoon, without saying anything to Olivia, Megan picked up her phone and sent a message to Jackson. "Hi. This is Megan, from the store. Just wanted to tell you something. Olivia mentioned she thinks you're very handsome and very polite. But she's married, so she's talking to me here, to avoid any misunderstandings or raise suspicions." She sent the message as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if she were doing a favor. Jackson took a few minutes but responded, keeping the same relaxed tone. "You can relax. I'm very discreet." And, to be honest, I liked her too. We can talk here, no problem. When Olivia found out that Megan had done that, she was furious. She argued with her, said she had crossed all boundaries, that it was crazy, that she shouldn't have done that. Are you insane? She asked, visibly irritated. I never asked you to tell him that. Megan, on the other hand, took it all as a joke. Oh, Olivia. Stop being silly. You can see he's interested too. It's just conversation, nothing serious is happening. As much as Olivia said she didn't like it, deep down she knew a door had been opened. And the most dangerous part? At that moment, she wasn't even thinking about closing that door. From that day on, Olivia and Jackson started talking with a frequency she herself never imagined would happen. Always through Megan's phone, as if that somehow made everything less serious, safer, more controlled. At first, it was just casual messages, silly conversations, subtle compliments, jokes that made the atmosphere lighter, and more dangerous. Megan, as always, was in the middle, encouraging, laughing, finding humor in everything. You two match, she'd say. Look how polite, how respectful he is, and how he treats you like you deserve. A few days passed until, out of nowhere, Megan threw out the idea. Why don't you two meet up, she said, as if suggesting something completely normal for everyday life. Jackson didn't think twice. He accepted right away. It was as if he had been waiting for it. Olivia, on the other hand, froze immediately. She said no, that it was crazy, that it could never happen, that she was married, that it didn't make sense. But Megan, on the other side, didn't back down. Calm down. It's just coffee. Nothing big. Just talk, get to know each other, put a face to the voice. And no one needs to know about it. After much insistence, Olivia gave in. And deep down, she didn't even know if she gave in out of curiosity, vanity, loneliness, or just for the adrenaline of doing something she, until that moment, would never have had the courage to do. On the scheduled day, she arrived at the cafe with her heart racing. She looked around nervously, tense, suspicious, anxious. She could barely pay attention to Jackson's words. She was clearly nervous. Afraid that someone would see her, that an acquaintance would pass by, or worse, that Brandon, her husband, would show up out of nowhere and catch everything. Just imagining it made her entire body go cold. Jackson noticed this quickly. And with that calmness of someone who knew exactly what he was doing, he cast the bait. If you want, we can leave now. Go somewhere more private. A place where no one will see you, no one will bother you. Just us. Olivia took a deep breath, looked around one more time, and without thinking much, answered. Okay. Let's go. Jackson gave a half smile, stood up, and took Olivia straight to a nearby motel. As soon as they stopped at the entrance, she was in shock. Jackson. What are you doing? I can't go in there with you. This is wrong, she said, already trembling, completely torn between fear and excitement. He then responded with that calm, confident voice, looking firmly into her eyes. Relax. We're not doing anything. It's just a place for us to talk. No one will see us here. That's all. For a few seconds, she hesitated. But at that point, it seemed like her conscience was already too confused to make any judgment. So, she simply accepted. They went in. And when she realized it, she was there, lying on the bed, next to him. Weeks passed, and what started as a dangerous game, fueled by flirtation and discreet meetings, intensified. Olivia and Jackson met 2 more times after that day at the motel. Always following the same script, quick encounters, far from any familiar eyes, with that mix of adrenaline and guilt consuming her inside. The difference was that, unlike the beginning, Olivia completely stopped talking about Jackson at home. That customer who used to be a constant topic in everyday conversations now simply disappeared from her lips. And it was exactly that which set off the alarm for Brandon. For an observant man like him, it didn't take much. Silence speaks louder than any words. And without thinking twice, on the same day he noticed it, he called a private detective. He explained the situation, every detail, his suspicions, and asked him to start following Olivia immediately. The next day, just before lunch, Brandon's phone rang. On the other end of the line, the detective got straight to the point. "Mr. Brandon, your wife is right now, at this exact moment, inside a motel with a man. Address such and such, room such and such." For a few seconds, Brandon stayed silent. His heart was pounding, but his voice was firm, icy. "Are you sure?" he asked. The detective replied only, "Check it yourself," and shortly after, sent a picture. As soon as the image arrived, any hope that still existed vanished. It was her. No room for doubt. The confirmation he needed. Brandon stood up, grabbed the keys, and left the office. He went straight to the address the detective had given. His blood was boiling, his whole body tense, but his mind was clear. He arrived in front of the motel, parked exactly in front of the indicated room, and with his phone in hand, took a deep breath and called Olivia. She answered with a dry, hurried tone. "Hello," Brandon, controlling every word, asked, "Where are you?" Olivia, already with that automatic tone of someone who had a ready excuse, replied quickly, "I went out to do some shopping." "Which supermarket?" he pressed. "The one on Central Street." "Why?" Brandon then fired back, "Wait for me there. I'm coming to meet you. We need to talk. It's urgent." What Olivia didn't know, was that as she listened to those words, Brandon was standing right on the other side of the door to the room she was in. As soon as he hung up, Olivia quickly got dressed, completely panicked, opened the door to leave, and at the same second, came face to face with Brandon. His gaze, firm and hard, pierced her soul. "Who's in there with you?" he asked, his voice deep, dry, loaded with disappointment and anger. From inside, Jackson heard that powerful voice and, in an instant of instinct, realized exactly what was happening. He ran to the door, locked it, turned the key, and barricaded himself inside. He left Olivia outside, alone, completely exposed, without footing, without air. Brandon turned, pounded on the door, kicked it, and shouted, "Get out of there, coward! Look me in the eye, man!" But Jackson stayed quiet, motionless, hidden like a rat. Olivia, in shock, panicked. Tears started streaming uncontrollably. "Brandon, forgive me, please," she sobbed, almost without a voice. But he, staring directly at her, shook his head, incredulous. "How could you, Olivia? How were you capable of this? I gave you everything. Everything. And you do this to me?" She tried to speak, but couldn't even form sentences. She was destroyed. Brandon then took a deep breath, turned his back, and said only, "Stay here. Figure your life out." And he left, without looking back, leaving Olivia in pieces. Desperate, she grabbed her phone and called Megan, sobbing, pleading, "Come get me, please, Megan, come get me now." Megan, hearing her state, asked, alarmed, "What happened, woman?" And through tears, Olivia replied, "Brandon, he found out, he caught us, he got us at the motel." As soon as Brandon left, Jackson, realizing the coast was clear, unlocked the door, stepped out, looked at Olivia, and without any ceremony, simply said, "Good luck. Handle your life," and he left, disappearing from there without even looking back. Minutes later, Megan arrived, found Olivia crying, destroyed, and took her home. Olivia didn't have the courage to return home that day. She spent the night at Megan's, unable to sleep, unable to eat, trying in vain to call Brandon dozens of times. All ignored. No calls, no messages. No response. The very next morning, early, Olivia decided to go back home. The hope was minimal, but she needed to try. She opened the door and found Brandon in the kitchen, calmly making coffee, as if nothing had happened. But his gaze, cold, cutting. She walked in crying, knelt, begged for forgiveness, trembling, saying she didn't know how it had happened, that Megan encouraged her, that everything spiraled out of control. "Brandon, please, forgive me," she sobbed. Without taking his eyes off her, Brandon responded with the same firmness of someone who had already made an irreversible decision. "I've already called the lawyer. The divorce papers are being prepared. Your suitcases are in the living room. Pick them up. And leave. Now." Olivia tried, grabbed his arm, pleaded, but he didn't give in. No discussion. No turning back. "It's over." He then went to the living room, pulled out her suitcases and placed them outside. "This is no longer your home." With no way out, she picked up her things, crying, destroyed, and went to Megan's house. And that's how it all ended. Time passed, the divorce was finalized, and Jackson, who never wanted trouble, disappeared from the map, vanished from Olivia's life as if he had never existed. Megan and Olivia started living together, kept running the online store, trying to rebuild something amid their own wreckage. Brandon? He moved on with his life. Head held high, convinced that he would never be a man to be taken for a fool. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.